Every single writer in the New Testament thought they were living in the end times. This is an interesting thought when we really sit down and think about it, because none of those writers thought that any of us living 2,000 years later would actually be reading those words. Why? Because the world was supposed to come to an end. They thought that the end was near. Look at all the teachings of Jesus and try to show me anywhere where Jesus is expecting that the end is not near. He says the kingdom of God is at hand. And based on all the prophecy, what was supposed to happen when the kingdom of God comes and the Son of Man arrives is that this was going to signal the end of the world as we knew it. Jesus even said, there are some of you standing here today who won't taste of death until the kingdom of God comes. That was supposed to be the end. And yet, the end didn't actually come. Jesus died, and the end never came. So then it was his disciples, the apostles, who thought that the end must be near now. And so you see Peter and James and John, who thought that the end was coming. And so the kingdom of heaven was at hand. They had to go out and spread the word to as many people as possible because the end was near. And then we move on to the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul gets converted, and he also thinks that the end is near. He thought God was coming back in his lifetime or shortly thereafter. But there was no concept of the fact that 2,000 years later, people would be reading the words that they wrote in letters to churches at that time, for that time. They had no concept of that fact. And so this is something we have to think really seriously about. When you read the Bible based on who it was written to at that time. And don't take any of the Bible and try to apply it to your life today, because that's not what it was written for. You are not who it was written to. These letters, these epistles, were written to specific people at specific times for a specific purpose. And because the end never came, we now, 2,000 years later, take those same Bible passages and try to draw truths from them, which I'm totally fine with. Draw a truth, that's okay. But to say that those words were written to us today, absolutely not. I don't buy it at all. Especially the book of Revelation. Revelation is the one that everyone thinks about is a futuristic take in terms of what's going to actually happen. But if you read Revelation, there's a really strong case to be made that it's just to be read literally for the people at that time. And there are countless things in the book of Revelation that point to the Roman Empire as that great evil that needs to be destroyed. And so when we look at what's going on in Revelation and we try to apply it to ourselves today, 2,000 years later, and we think, oh man, the end must be coming and here's what it's going to look like. No, that was an apocalypse that was written to people at that time who lived a miserable life under the tyranny of the Roman Empire. And there was some hope that John tried to give those people about what the future would hold after the suffering that they all endured. But it had nothing to do with Christians 2,000 years later, and John could never have imagined that people would even be alive 2,000 years later, because he thought that the end was now. The writers of the New Testament had no concept that the world would still be around 2,000 years later. And based on that information alone, we should be very careful about taking anything that they wrote and trying to apply it to our lives today, as if God is trying to tell us how to live our lives. And keep this in mind, every single prediction from the writers in the New Testament and Jesus himself that the world was about to end, or it would end very soon, none of those came true. Not a single one. Let me know what you think about this one. Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Do you agree? Disagree? I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. And think about sharing this video with someone else who's interested in these topics.